The deep ocean, one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Crippling cold, lethal pressure, a deadly but irresistible world.
If you make a mistake, it'll kill you, just like that.
To understand our planet, we must explore the oceans that cover almost 3/4 of its surface. Down in the dark depths lie rich minerals, incredible oases of life, and scientific mysteries.
We're kind of on the cutting edge of ignorance about what we know about the ocean.
We are on a journey to uncover the riddles and resources that lie beneath the waves. Welcome to the deep. Above us all stretches the majesty of the skies, a universe of distant stars and planets, brave new worlds that may one day be closer to home. But space is not the only frontier. A dozen men have walked on the moon, but only 2 have ever been here. The bottom of an oceanic trench. The deepest place on Earth. Now we follow 2 intrepid ocean pioneers as they embark on an epic journey. A journey through each of the ocean's layers, down to its deepest point. During the long dive down, we will venture out into each zone, revealing its mysteries and the technology that allows scientists to study them. Below the waves, colonies of biologists study the beautiful coral reefs. Diving engineers create new technology that may let us tap the ocean's immense mineral wealth. And bizarre life forms force scientists to question the very nature of life itself.
I don't think most people realize that the Earth is alive. It's a living organism, and most of it is beneath the sea. Most of its secrets are beneath the sea.
We start our journey far above the sea's surface, looking down on the oceans below. If we pull the plug on the oceans, we can see each of the distinct layers that make up the deep's alien landscape. A shallow ledge surrounds the land. This shelf rarely exceeds a few hundred feet in depth. The continental shelf is an underwater extension of the landmass. But on average, 40 miles from land, the seafloor plummets thousands of feet into the vast abyssal plains. These plains average 12,000 feet deep. They dominate the planet, covering around half the ocean floor. A chain of mountains runs for 40,000 miles across them, 4 times longer than the Himalayas, Andes, and Rockies combined. Our final destination lies just beyond these peaks. The deepest of all the ocean's chasms, the Mariana Trench. The trench is 43 miles wide and nearly 7 miles deep, large enough to swallow Mount Everest with ease. For Bob Ballard, the discoverer of the Titanic, the deep ocean is one of human exploration's greatest challenges.
Diving is dangerous. You're an air-breathing, land-loving, sun-loving creature that's in a totally different world, far more alien in many ways than going to Mars or going to the moon.
50 years ago, 2 men prepared to venture into this alien world. to travel where no human has been before or since. January 23, 1960. The U.S. Navy readies an odd-looking submarine off the Pacific island of Guam, the Trieste, an extraordinary vehicle that engineers hope will withstand the extreme conditions in one of the most remote, inhospitable places on Earth, the Mariana Trench. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh has been preparing for the record-breaking dive for 9 months.
It was just another day at the office. I don't mean to be precious, but it wasn't that complicated, and we'd done so many dives, I pretty well knew everything about the thing and how it worked. It was just going to be a long day.
Trieste is a bulky, strange-looking craft known as a bathyscaphe. It's more like an airship than a conventional submarine. A 58-foot-long tank dominates the craft. Slung beneath is a tiny spherical cabin where Don Walsh and his fellow crew member, Jacques Picard, will be squeezed for the entire journey.
The interior of the sphere of the cabin was indeed small, and the actual room that the two of us had is about the same size as a large household refrigerator. So next time you're in fishing out a can of beer, think about two guys trying to work in there.
The main tank above the tiny cabin is full of 28,000 gallons of gasoline. But it's this gasoline, less dense than seawater, that allows the Trieste to float. The dive can only begin when the crew floods the ballast tanks with water. This makes Trieste heavier, and the bathyscaphe begins to sink. She's on her way to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Locked in their cabin, Walsh and Picard can only hope the Trieste will survive the ocean's extremes. From here on in, mistakes are likely to be fatal.
Most of my closest calls with death occurred in bathyscaphes, so I know how dangerous they are, and I know how dangerous their dive was, very much so.
Our dive to the bottom of the trench begins with the smallest step. Into the shallow skin of water above the continental shelf. Through Trieste's porthole, we look out into a sunlit realm called the photic zone. Here, sunlight warms the water and allows plants to produce energy through photosynthesis, spawning an enormous food chain. Most marine life exists in this thin layer of ocean.
When you start a dive, you're up in the sunlit layers. It's a beautiful blue. Sharks and other fish are swimming by.
60 feet beneath the surface, we're already a long way from our native habitat, dry land. Scuba technology allows us to enter this magical world, but only briefly. The amount of air in our tanks limits the time we can spend here. And our return to the surface is fraught with danger. The effects of changing water pressure can be deadly. To truly understand the wonders of these luminous waters, we need more than brief glimpses. We need to stay beneath the waves. And now, researchers have found a way to do just that. 60 feet beneath the surface, around 3.5 miles off Florida's Key Largo, lies the Aquarius station. Owned by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it's the only underwater laboratory in the world. This pressurized steel tank can accommodate 6 biologists for up to 10 days. Here they can study the coral reefs of this sunlit zone. The reefs are home to colonies of tiny organisms and a treasury of life. Biology professor Mark Hay from the Georgia Institute of Technology is conducting research at Aquarius.
It's sort of like school bus that's sunk on the bottom. It's about that size. It's full of air, and there's a hole in the bottom, and you go and come through that hole.
This open hole is a direct link between the ocean and Aquarius's interior. It allows scientists to come and go as they please. Pressurized air inside the underwater station stops water flooding in, allowing scientists to live and work 60 feet underwater. The biologists can spend up to 9 hours on research dives, 9 times longer than if they dove from the surface. To recharge their air tanks, they return to the station rather than above the waves. With telephones, microwaves, and computers, Aquarius has all the comforts of home, apart from one very basic facility.
Bad smells and things are something you don't want in Aquarius, so any kind of bathroom activities are done outside. And so we swim over to one of these little gazebos, and you stand up in that so where you can breathe. And this is kind of a, marine outhouse.
You just have to lower your wetsuit and let nature take its course. But unfortunately, all this activity often alerts the local wildlife.
The fish are not overly patient, and they can invade your personal space aggressively sometimes, and that's not always comforting.
Aquarius is an extraordinary resource for scientists. Living side by side with the coral and animals gives scientists a rare opportunity to learn more about these rainforests of the sea.
I always see new things when I'm in Aquarius, and part of the reason is you can go out all day. You can go out in the late afternoon and you can come back in at night, and you can stay out that whole time. You see all sorts of behaviors that you would miss otherwise. You see interactions among species that you wouldn't normally see. Having that constant access is something that's very unusual and very powerful for us as scientists to get access to.
Aquarius offers biologists unparalleled access to the coral reef. Who knows what treasures lie waiting to be discovered? But our final destination lies far below the paradise of the coral reefs. 99% of our journey lies deeper than Aquarius. The waters darken with every passing foot. The pressure rises and the temperature falls. It's time to go deeper. Just a few hundred feet into our dive of almost 7 miles, and the environment changes dramatically. Less and less sunlight penetrates down to these depths, and the ocean begins to change color.
You begin to lose the blue-green, and then finally you get into shades of gray, and then the abyssal blackness.
350 feet down, the Trieste runs straight into an invisible barrier. The water temperature drops from 70 to 50 degrees in the space of a few hundred feet. Most of the sun's heat is absorbed by the upper ocean. Here, water is less dense, but deeper down, less sunlight means cooler, saltier, and denser water. The ocean separates out into layers. Warmer water above, denser, colder water below. The barrier between these two layers is called a thermocline.
Remember, the bathyscaphe is just a balloon. So we were descending through that warmer upper layer, but when we hit that thermocline, then we weren't heavy enough to go through it, into it. We just bounced like a ball.
The Trieste is too buoyant to sink through the layer of dense, cold water. It's stuck. To break through, they jettison lightweight gasoline. Now less buoyant, the Trieste penetrates the barrier and sinks on toward the Mariana Trench. We now reach 650 feet down, deeper than the Washington Monument is tall. We are entering a twilight world called the mesopelagic zone. Barely 1% of sunlight reaches these frigid waters. The temperature plummets to below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But even here, there are mineral riches to be found. Locked beneath the seabed lie vast reserves of oil and gas. To tap these precious resources, some advanced divers venture down over 1,000 feet. But the pressure at these depths is so intense that it's a dangerous and specialized task. We need a technological breakthrough to overcome the limitations of conventional diving methods. A breakthrough that inventor Phil Newton hopes to make. Years of commercial diving have taught Newton long-term exposure to the enormous pressures of the deep ocean can wreck the human body.
If you work in the ocean, you come to respect that it's so inexorable, it's so powerful, and we're just fragile little things. We're like a jellyfish full of chopsticks. We just really are very weak, and the slightest thing just blows us away.
Divers in their 20s can develop bones as brittle as 80-year-olds with osteoporosis. So Newton is developing protective mechanical suits that make venturing below 1,000 feet safer and easier.
So to go there, you do need the armor of technology, and the better the armor you have, the better your chances of survival.
The Newt suit is like a submarine you can wear. A rigid aluminum shell protects the diver and maintains atmospheric pressure inside the suit. The latest model is the exosuit. It features a wide-angle viewing dome and can carry enough air for a 48-hour dive. It's built of metal 1/4 of an inch thick, strong enough to withstand intense pressure. Neat engineering means it's also flexible.
When this narrow part of this wedge is down here, like that, then all of a sudden the arm is bent, just because of these two wedges being together. And again, when they're apart, the arm is straight. And so that's how you get this, this sort of flexion extension out of rotation.
20 of these articulated joints give the diver almost complete freedom of movement. Once in position, the divers need to be able to work. And to do that, they need hands. So Newton has created robotic hands that have opposable indexable thumbs.
This is indexable. This thumb, that movement in the thumb is absolutely critical, and only some primates have it. All other animals do not. And that allows us to use these fingers to index this, this, and this.
His mechanical hand does the same. He can grip, hold, and maneuver objects with incredible dexterity.
You can pick up a pencil with this, sign your name, it'll be in your handwriting. You can pick up a ball, throw it against the wall, catch it again, etc. And that's because of this indexable thumb and this ability to reach around in this fashion.
In addition to suits, Newton has designed a range of submersibles. But they only work down to 3,000 feet. Beyond that, the intense pressure is too great for them to operate safely. At 3,000 feet, we have around 90% of our journey still ahead of us. Below lies a world starved of sun, dominated by dark ocean mountains. A volatile wilderness where the planet creates some of its rocky skin, and life seems to defy the laws of science itself. The first few hundred feet of the world's oceans are bathed in sunlight, rich in plant and animal life. But as we dive deeper, we enter unfamiliar territory. Home to strange life forms. 10,000 feet down, we arrive at the abyssal plains. They cover almost half of the ocean floor, and for the most part, they are featureless. But rising up from the plains is an enormous geological wonder. A feature so extraordinary, it challenges our perception of the oceans, geology, and even life itself. The mid-ocean ridge. An immense chain of mountains stretching around the planet for 40,000 miles, like the seam on a baseball. It's the largest and one of the most volcanically active mountain ranges on Earth. Bob Ballard is one of the few people to have seen it up close and personal.
I call it the boundary of creation, because it's along this mountain range where the Earth creates its outer skin.
Until around 40 years ago, the mid-ocean ridge was a geological conundrum. How did this range of mountains form under the sea? According to the theory of plate tectonics, the Earth's crust is made of a series of interlocking plates. When two plates push together, they can form mountain ranges. But at the mid-ocean ridge, the plates aren't pushing together, they're pulling apart.
When you look at mountain ranges like the Himalayas and the Andes, these are caused by plates crashing into one another. And so you can sort of imagine, yeah, that makes sense. You have two plates crash into one another and they buckle up, they'll make a mountain range. But what the mystery of the mid-ocean ridge was, how do you make a mountain range pulling apart? Didn't make sense.
So in the 1960s, geologists come up with a radical explanation. The mid-ocean ridge is like a giant blister. Molten rock from deep in the Earth's mantle wells up between the plates, oozing magma out into the sea. This magma then cools and solidifies, forming a ridge thousands of feet high. It's a neat theory, but there's a problem when it comes to testing it. The water surrounding the mid-ocean ridge should be warm, heated by the magma as it emerges from the ridge. But temperature readings taken along the ridge are much lower than the scientists expect. And if there's no heat, it could mean there's no magma, and no explanation for the existence of the mid-ocean ridge. In 1977, Bob Ballard leads an expedition to try to solve the riddle. A lot rests on his mission. Signs of the missing heat would provide vital evidence to support the theory. So Ballard uses the most cutting-edge technology of the 1970s.
It was called Angus, which stood for Acoustically Navigated Geological Underwater Survey System. And it was basically a dope on a rope.
Angus's heavy cage protects a heat probe inside it. This probe sends temperature measurements back to the ship's bridge. Angus is also equipped with a camera to photograph the sea floor.
We don't get to see the pictures till we recover it many hours later, but we do have this one little link with it of temperature. So we have a little plot, and all of a sudden, plot, plot, bam, it jumped on us. And we said, it went through hot water. And we wrote down the time.
Is this evidence of the high temperatures they're searching for? They haul Angus back on board the support ship. Ballard and his team carefully cross-reference the measurements with the photographs. And the results are startling. The photos reveal a vent spewing out superheated water at the exact spot Ballard had recorded the heat spike. Here at last is the heat the theory predicted, evidence to support the idea that magma is welling up through the dividing plates at the mid-ocean ridge. And because heat is released through these vents, it explains why temperatures elsewhere on the ridge are lower. But the photographs reveal something else, something nobody predicted. Where the water is cool, the photographs show clean black lava. But in the hot spots, everything changes.
Lava, lava, lava. Every 12 seconds, a picture. And then as we approached the magic moment, the water got cloudy, very cloudy, and then hundreds of clams, big clams on the bottom of the ocean, and then out.
It doesn't make sense. Life shouldn't survive in these inky waters, starved of all sunlight. To get a better look, Ballard returns to the mid-ocean ridge in a custom-built research submersible.
We had been told in our textbooks that the sun cannot reach the abyssal depths of the mid-ocean ridge, so you can't have photosynthesis. In the absence of photosynthesis, you can't have plants. In the absence of plants, you can't have much life. And yet, here was another system.
Ballard and his mystified team collect samples and contact biologists back on shore.
They said, okay, we've got this big worm, 8 feet long. What are we supposed to do with it? And they said, no, what? You've got an, and we tried. They couldn't believe what we were describing to them. And we said, well, you'll have to believe it because it's right here. I have it in my hands.
Ballard's claims stun the biologists. They ask him to preserve the specimens.
They said, well, put it in formaldehyde. And we said, well, we're geologists. We don't carry formaldehyde. Well, do you have any vodka? And we said, oh, that's getting, now you're getting personal, because, you're out at sea for a long, long time. You bring a little liquor with you. We had to use our liquor to preserve these creatures, so we didn't collect as many as we probably should.
Ballard's expedition had solved one geological mystery, only to stumble upon a new biological one. The discovery flies in the face of the previous scientific assumption that without sunlight, there can be no life. Scientists considered photosynthesis the basis for all life on Earth. But here is life without light. So how do these strange organisms exist in the dark ocean? On a mission to investigate the mid-ocean ridge, explorer Bob Ballard and his team discover a whole new ecosystem. Here at 8,500 feet down, life thrives in the dark depths.
We came in on this incredible zoo of creatures, exotic creatures, but mostly what was so impressive was the fresh lava was so covered with marine life, you couldn't see the lava. This is not supposed to happen.
No light should mean no plants. No plants should mean no animals. So how does this swarm of exotic sea creatures survive? The first clue comes not from the creatures, but from the water itself.
When we brought up some of the water coming out of the vents, and we opened the canister, and wow, the smell of hydrogen sulfide.
Hydrothermal vents are hotspots of volcanic activity, places where lava and gases burst through the Earth's crust, gases that include hydrogen sulfide. To humans, hydrogen sulfide is poisonous, but to the creatures clustered around the vents, it's the source of life itself.
We began to realize that a bacterium had figured out over eons of time how to duplicate photosynthesis in the dark.
A species of tiny single-celled bacteria mixes hydrogen sulfide with oxygen to produce energy. This chemical reaction fuels the bacteria's growth, allowing them to live without sunlight. And these bacteria form the foundation of the entire extraordinary ecosystem. Biologist Bria Governor from Woods Hole Oceanography Institute studies the relationship between the bacteria and the other creatures that live on the vents.
Finding life at hydrothermal vents really changed the way we think about biological systems. And really from there, the possibilities are endless.
Governor studies a particular tube worm that lives on the vents.
So this is a preserved specimen of the tube worm Riftia pachyptila. This is the giant tube worm that can sometimes reach tube lengths of 1 meter to 3 meters in length.
The worm uses a feathery plume to filter hydrogen sulfide and oxygen from the water. But it doesn't use these substances itself. Instead, it passes them on to the bacteria living inside its body.
And these bacteria use sulfide and oxygen in a chemical reaction to produce simple sugars that will then feed the tube worm.
It's an astounding and effective partnership. Each liter of fluid ejected from the vent contains enough hydrogen sulfide to produce over 700 calories when mixed with oxygen. The bacteria use this energy to produce simple sugars. By gorging on these sugars, the worm can grow to 9 feet long. These bacteria are the lifeblood of this bizarre ecosystem. Clams, mussels, and snails feed on them. These creatures are then eaten by other predators, such as fish, crabs, and octopus. The bacteria turn the barren waste of the deep abyss into oases of life. And they may hold clues to the origin of all life on Earth, and even beyond. Dr. Chris German from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution has spent 18 years studying hydrothermal vents.
There are new discoveries we've been making which are crucial to the origins of life on our own planet. There are unique ecosystems down there. There are fauna we've never seen. Every time we go out, we find new species.
In 2006, German discovers the hottest vents ever found. These vents expel noxious acidic liquid that reaches nearly 700 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't sound like a recipe for life, but German finds that the liquid contains some intriguing ingredients.
This fluid had a whole bunch of complex organic molecules in it. The basic complex organic molecules that you might have needed for the origins of life.
The vents spew out chemicals that can support specialized life forms. But they also may help to explain the beginning of life on Earth.
It starts growing the building blocks for life without any life being present.
But even here, we're still 5 miles above our final destination, in one of the most extreme environments on the planet. Our journey now enters one of the least understood places on Earth, the deepest part of the ocean. We are in a world of eternal darkness, where only the truly strange survive. On board the Trieste, Don Walsh descends through these eerie pitch-black waters.
Our depth gauge would show increasing depth, but an easier way was just to look outside, because in almost the entire water column of some 7 miles, there is bioluminescence. These are organisms, living organisms that essentially flash light. We could look at these things going by, and the rate that they're moving is your vertical speed.
At a rate of 180 feet per minute, the Trieste heads toward its goal. Each extra foot of descent means an additional 63 pounds of pressure per square foot pushing against the steel hull. By 18,000 feet, the pressure is more than 500 times greater than at the surface. An unprotected person would feel 8,000 pounds of pressure on every square inch of their body. Such pressure would instantly crush most submersibles like an empty soda can. To prevent the walls collapsing, the designers of the Trieste have maximized the hull's strength. Her steel hull fits together, forming a sphere, spreading the pressure evenly around the structure. Its pieces are held together with epoxy resin. But these are still nervous moments. On an earlier test dive, the Trieste suffered a terrible accident.
The glue gave up. There was a great bang. A lot of stress was stored up in that joint, and the glue broke. Well, the only thing that's holding the three pieces together now is water pressure.
The water pressure held the three pieces of the cabin together. But Trieste needs to be fixed fast. With the dive to the Mariana Trench just weeks away, the team only has time for a makeshift repair.
One of my chief petty officers, he built these bands that strap it together, which you can see on the Trieste now. They kind of grip the three pieces like that.
Patched up, the Trieste sets out for the deepest place on the planet and its toughest test yet. As they reach 20,000 feet, the makeshift bands show no sign of strain. They continue on. Walsh and Picard now enter the unknown, the ocean trench. Just as the oceanic ridges create the Earth's crust, the trenches are at work destroying it. Trenches form when oceanic plates collide, forcing one plate under the other. The lower plate plunges downward, and its crust is recycled into magma.
These trenches, these furrows in the floor of the ocean were like valleys. The slope of the sides of the trench is very, very gradual.
Walsh enters the deepest of all the trenches, the Mariana Trench. East of the Philippines, this trench plummets down 15,000 feet from the abyssal plains. He's now around 30,000 feet below the surface. The pressure on Trieste's capsule is now 900 times greater than at the surface. Suddenly, the team's worst fears are realized. An explosion rocks the bathyscaphe. On its journey to the bottom of the ocean, the Trieste finally enters the Mariana Trench. A scar on the ocean floor, 1,400 miles long and 43 miles wide. It's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Thousands of people have climbed the world's highest mountain, but Walsh and Picard are the first and only humans to descend into this trench. The water pressure against the bathyscaphe is enormous. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the entire craft. The bang startles Walsh and Picard.
If, in fact, we had catastrophic flooding, it's unlikely we would have even known about it. It had been over just like that. I mean, that sea pressure out there, 5 tons per square inch. The fact that we could hear it and we were still there meant that we were still alive.
The break occurs on one of the Trieste's weakest points, an outer window. The inner hull stays watertight, allowing the Trieste to dive onward toward the very bottom of the trench. But dangerous accidents like these mean not every scientist is eager to descend into the deep ocean. In the years since Trieste's dive, many have come to believe that there's no point in sending people to the bottom of the ocean. Now, instead of fragile flesh and blood, explorers are using remote-controlled vehicles and robots to overcome the challenges of the deep. And one of the remote vehicle's biggest advocates is someone who used to champion manned deep-sea exploration, Bob Ballard.
Well, for me, the magic moment of conversion was in 1979. We organized an expedition to return to the hydrothermal vents. We had with us on that dive the first digital color camera ever built. So down we go.
The video camera gives a clearer view than a small porthole ever could. Ballard then develops a new device called Argo. Like a tethered eyeball, this unmanned machine sends video images of the seafloor directly to a control room on the surface. And on September 1st, 1985, Ballard's ingenious device makes an astonishing discovery. The wreck of the Titanic. Sitting in 12,000 feet of cold North Atlantic water, she has escaped detection for over 80 years. Ballard's robot succeeds where manned exploration has failed. It doesn't demand air, food, or even a little R&R, and so can spend weeks rather than hours scouring the seafloor. Today, scientists are building a new generation of aquatic robots. These can venture deeper than ever before, and they rely less and less on their human controllers. Some robots are even being programmed to think, making decisions, and reacting to what they find. But not everyone is convinced they will fully replace human exploration.
People have in their mind, because you see on television all the time robots hopping around and winning at chess games and all that sort of stuff. They're actually very stupid when it comes to intervention. So the whole idea of having a person there is you don't know what you're going to encounter. Robots are wonderful and pre-programmed, but when you confront them with something that's not in their database, then they are totally hooped.
Robots might prove to be the future, but 5 decades ago on the Trieste, they weren't an option. The mission relies on its fragile human crew to pilot the vessel and make scientific observations. And incredibly, the sturdy bathyscaphe has protected them from the extreme dangers of the deep. After 4 3/4 hours, they near the bottom of the ocean, the deepest point on the planet. They slow their descent, and the Trieste touches down on the seafloor. 35,800 feet below the surface.
Well, we knew that we'd reached the bottom of the ocean because there the bottom was. Basically, we just kept going until we ran out of ocean.
Fortunately, it's a soft landing, oozing silt rather than bare rock.
I characterize it as looking somewhat like porridge, rather light-colored, very fine. And when we landed, we got this great boil up of these sediments in a cloud.
Almost 7 miles down, the pressure is over 1,000 times that at the surface. But even in this inhospitable frontier, life still exists.
We saw a fish, a bottom-dwelling type of fish, a flatfish, like a halibut, 2 eyes on one side and all that. Well, that is bottom-dwelling, so it didn't just swim down there, it lived there. And if there's one, there's 2.
Walsh and Picard spend 30 minutes making observations before ascending to the surface and a blaze of publicity.
Off the island of Guam, the Navy's research bathyscaphe, Trieste, surfaces after a descent into the Mariana Trench, the deepest known hole in the Earth's oceans. A trip farther toward the center of the Earth than Mount Everest rises above its crown.
Our journey of exploration is complete. It's taken us through a strange and wonderful world. But despite all its riches, all its wonders, today 95% of our oceans remain unexplored. Earth's last, greatest frontier lies beneath the waves, awaiting a new generation of intrepid explorers.